Hi, I'm Nicholas. I have a Dantherm HCV5 ventilation system and it's 12 years old. It's running a bit roughly. You can hear the ball bearings are not happy anymore, making quite a bit of noise. So it cost me about 6,000 kroner to get a technician out and change both motors. So instead I decided to take it apart myself and replace the 4 ball bearings in the EBM PAPST ventilator motors. So this is a video about how one can do that. It's important you only do it if you are qualified, and you can do things wrong that are dangerous electrically, mechanically, and also you do not want your ventilation system not working for a couple of weeks. You can get bad mold growing in the ventilation channels. So let's see how to do it. So here we have the Dantherm HCV5 unit. First, unplug it, make sure it's completely unplugged from power and no one else can plug it in again. Lift up the top lid here, support it on its little supporting strut, and you'll see there are 2 screws revealed now, which enable you to get the bottom half of the lid off. Unscrew these. And lift the bottom half of the lid off and put it carefully on the floor. You can now see that the inside is made of polystyrene and there are 3 metal bands with 6 machine bolts holding it all in place. So loosen these 6 screws placed here. Do take care to let the control panel elegantly fall out of the polystyrene where it's just nestled in. Carefully take the polystyrene front off, put it on the floor without damaging it. And here you can see the inner workings of the machine. Here you can see the fan that's in the cold 100% relative humidity air. It's usually a bit mouldy. And here we have the control board. It is very important to label all the plugs before you take them off the control board. You can put them back in a wrong way that will result in the control board being immediately damaged. The fan cassettes are just in with friction, so you pull them out firmly. The bottom one, you have to carefully remove this plexiglass water container front first, and you just sort of carefully pull it out. Note the cables have to come with it. So now you do actually have to start disconnecting things from the control board. It is important to label these plugs properly. I recommend different coloured sharpies, so you definitely put them back the right place. To get them out, you lift the little tab on the bottom of them, pull them carefully out. And also note that the earth connections are also important. They go to a separate earth terminal near the front. So now I've got all the fans out. Disconnected the cables because they're too short to get the fans out without disconnecting them, and it's now important to clean the mouldy bits with a warm soapy water. So now we have the fan units out. We have to disassemble them enough to get the fans out. There is 4 screws deep in holes you need to loosen. Get the fan unit more visible like this, and loosen these 4 screws to get the fan out of the bracket holding it. You want to take off the connecting wire, which requires 1 more screw, and then you can sort of unplug it. Now we need to take the actual fan apart itself. When these 4 screws are loose, you can lift off the control board, circuit board, and lift this little seal, and now you can see the actual axle and bearings, which is the bit we want to get at to actually change. To get the C-clip off, use either sharp nose pliers or specialist pliers. Now, when the C-clip is off, you can lift the inner motor assembly off its axle. In this case, we're lucky, both bearings just come with it. Take the rotor over to the sink and clean the mould off it. Note these little weights, these little clips on the rotor, you don't want to move them. I do recommend you use a P3 mask while cleaning mould, and that you do this wet so any spores don't fly out in the air. Now, the other motor unit, it's a bit simpler. You have these 4 screws you remove, and then the fan is loose. Note that the wire to the fan is attached with a strip inside the unit. You can see it here. So you need to cut that strip and then move the fan sideways to be able to slide it out of the unit. Then again you loosen the little screw holding the wires and the 4 screws that hold the fan unit together. And then you can lift the control circuit board off, open this seal, and again see the bearing and the axle. Remove the C-clip with either sharp nose pliers or specialized pliers. Do hold your hand over the C-clip so it doesn't fly off somewhere, and then take the inner motor part out. Now here you see the bearing has been running warm, so it has seized to the axle. So it's going to be difficult for us to get out. Now, keeping the electronics board dry are these O-rings, which I gave a bit of olive oil to rejuvenate them, make them nice and stretchy again. Now, to get the bearing that has seized the axle off, I actually went to work and manufactured this special puller by laser cutting it out of stainless steel. Now, most people don't have the option to do that, but you will need to somehow apply quite a lot of pressure to the bottom of the bearing to lift it up off the axle. The easiest way to avoid the bearing seizing to your axle is to do this service in time before the ball bearings get running warm. I cleaned the axle with some steel wool to make it easier to put the next new ball bearing on. Right, time to do the actual changing of the ball bearings. So here we have the central motor unit. You need to get the old bearings out. You just use a screwdriver from the opposite direction to push them out. They're just seated in the plastic. They pop out quite easily. Then you get the new ball bearings. These are type 6262ZC3, where C3 means there's a bit of extra tolerance between the ball and the race, so that even if the motor gets a bit warm, it still runs nicely. These are from SKF. You do want a high quality manufacturer, since you want them to be running another 10 years. So these you just sort of push into the plastic indent for them with your fingers. Then remember to put the spring and washer on the axle. They go at the bottom of the axle, keeping the inner motor unit a bit up. And remember, if you lose any of these parts, they will fly over to the magnet and sort of stick in there. You can get them out easily enough, but you do have to notice. Then you put the inner motor unit back on the axle. You should feel it spring up and down. It should be spring loaded against your finger when you push it down. And now it's time to put the retaining C-clip back on again. We'll do the same thing with the other motor unit. We've popped the ball bearings out of it. We put new ones in, just push them in with your fingers. Put the O-ring, which we gave the olive oil, around here. Remember, spring and washer down at the bottom of the axle. Put the inner motor unit in, push it down a bit, you should be able to feel it being spring-loaded back against your fingers. It should rotate completely freely. Put the C retaining clip back on the axle. Put the axle seal back on. And now it's time to put the electronics and control circuit back on. Notice that there are electric pins that have to align properly, and one set of pins has two pins right next to each other, so you can see, make sure the O-ring is seated nicely. So see, there are two holes there and two pins there, so that shows you what orientation to put it on. Do be very careful here to not bend any of these electrical pins. It goes on very easily. And now it's time to put in the 4 big screws and the 1 helping screw that's holding the wire down. Give the motor a spin, make sure it's running completely freely and with no friction, no noise whatsoever. And it's time to put it back in its bracket. Remember to take the wire through the hole first. Then put in the 4 screws with their locking washers, spring washers, hold the fan assembly to its bracket. Now time to connect the bracket to its cassette. So we have 4 more screws, also with locking spring washers that have to be tightened down through these long holes. Now time for the other fan cassette. Here you pull the cable through its rubber grommet. Get the fan in, not where the hole for the fan is, but next to it, and then slide it along. Put these 4 screws in to attach the fan to the cassette, and then do remember to use a cable tie to connect the wire to the inside of the cassette again, so the wire can't touch the fan. So now it's time to slide these cassettes back in where they go. Do that carefully without damaging the polystyrene. And it's time to connect the wires again. So the wires have to go through these airtight grommets. And it's time to connect those plugs again to the control board. And it's very important to label them so you don't get them the wrong place. Most of them are keyed in the sense you can't put them wrong, but some of them are not. It's quite possible, for example, to put the 230 volt input into the 12 volt output, and that will definitely burn the control board off immediately. and that's dangerous, and you certainly haven't saved any money then. Do remember to also connect all the earth wires to the earth wire connectors on the little metal bracket at the front there. Now remember to put the plastic front of the water tray in and rotate the fans before connecting power. Make sure there's no sound or friction. Now we've got the power connected here, and you can hear everything is running much nicer and smoothly, very quiet considering the front is off this unit. While you have the unit open, you probably want to test that the bypass damper also moves correctly. It probably will. Now, time to close everything up again. Make sure to put the electrical control panel in its little hole in the polystyrene, and then there are these 3 metal pins that hold the polystyrene in place. Put in the 6 screws. And now it's time to put the front panel on. Be careful not to pinch the electrical cable to the control panel. Put the bottom in first and sort of tip it forward and put in the final 2 screws. And now you're pretty much finished. Congratulations.